Hello and welcome to the Haaretz Podcast. I'm Alison Kaplan-Summer in Tel Aviv. It increasingly feels as if a U.S. attack on Iran is imminent, and the only question is, when will it happen? Over the weekend, U.S. Central Command Chief General Brad Cooper came to Israel, meeting with top Israeli officials to coordinate. The IDF is on high alert. Some international airlines have already suspended their service to Israel. Others are rerouting as U.S. military forces stream to the region, positioning themselves for attack, and Israel braces itself for being the target of Iranian retaliation. Tehran is sounding belligerent, with a senior official telling the media that Tehran will treat any attack as an all-out war and respond in the harshest way to put an end to it. Here with me to talk about what has happened and what will play out in the future is Dr. Meir Javedanfar. Meir lived in Iran until he was 14 years old. He's an Iranian-Israeli lecturer, author, and commentator. He teaches Iranian politics at Reichman University, and he is the co-author of the first biography of Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. That book is called The Nuclear Sphinx of Iran. Our conversation is coming up.
I'm Esther Solomon, Editor-in-Chief of Haaretz English. Around the world, the fight is on to preserve critical and independent media. Haaretz, Israel's oldest newspaper, upholds its long tradition of accurate, committed, and incisive journalism, refusing to bend its reporting to pressure from any government or leader. A digital subscription to Haaretz gives you up-to-the-minute news and analysis in English from journalists who live Israel's reality and are committed to covering the Middle East and its global repercussions. At the same time, your subscription supports the cause of a free press that holds the powerful to account in Israel and around the world. I invite you to become a subscriber to Haaretz now. Just go to Haaretz.com and use the code Haaretz10, that's Haaretz with the number 10, for 10% off an annual subscription.
Dr. Meir Javedanfar, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Alison. Good to be with you.
Meir, given the internet disruptions, limitations in communications, what is your best assessment of the extent of the crackdown of the regime on protesters in Iran right now?
The numbers range anywhere from 5,000 to 43,000 dead, and the injured is somewhere between 50,000 to 330,000. These are all the different ranges. I think the consensus is around 30,000 dead at least. This is all part of the scenario building program of the IRGC from many years ago, whereupon they decided, instead of having just one central command in Tehran, they decentralized it in what is called the mosaic strategy into all of Iran's 31 provinces. They had headquarters which were in charge of oppressing and suppressing such protests, and we see the results today.
So you're saying that just as most countries are in position for attacks from outside forces, the Iranian regime is constantly in position to crack down on unrest, protests against their rule, and therefore they were able to react very quickly to what happened.
Correct. Iran's strategy of suppressing protests is not just based on theory. It was carried out letter by letter in Syria. Let's not forget that it was the Iranian advisors who were in charge of telling Bashar al-Assad what to do. And in some cases, they were disappointed because Bashar al-Assad was not violent enough against the people of Syria when they rose up, especially in 2011. So they have developed these theories alongside practice. They are also practitioners. They were participants in the Syrian civil war for 10 years as advisors in Syria, and they have honed their skills both in theory and practice, and now they are carrying it out against their own people on the streets of Iran.
Maybe we've gotten a little jaded over the years because we've seen uprisings happen, come and go. Can you explain to us how this is on a different scale?
I think it is on a different scale, first and foremost, because it's about inflation. Before, the last big uprising, 2022, was about the hijab issue. Yes, that's a popular issue. It's a huge source of anger among Iranians. Why is the regime focusing on women's hair, whereas Iran has far bigger problems such as corruption, mismanagement, sanctions, and electricity shortages? But this new problem is inflation. It is runaway inflation. And this is an issue that affects every Iranian in every corner of the country. And I think people of Iran saw that the regime is not doing anything, is not taking any steps, effective steps to counter it. And meanwhile, the stories of corruption at the top are getting worse. So this time, the belief was that there's nothing that the regime is doing to address this critical issue. So the only thing left for the people to do is to go to the streets to protest, because they try to protest by voting for Mr. Pezeshkian, who is supposedly a more reformist candidate, somebody who said that he's going to address the country's economic ailments, but he did nothing. So people felt that in front of this huge problem of inflation, which is like a tsunami, is wiping away the value of what little Iranians earn, the only option is to go and protest.
Meir, you were born and raised in Iran. You lived there until you were 14 years old. When you see the videos of what is playing out on the streets of Iran, again, to the extent that we can see what is actually happening, how do you feel? How do other expat Iranians around the world feel? What has the reaction been in the wider Iranian community?
I'll give you an example. Last night, I went to the protest in Habima Square. These protests against what the government of Israel is doing to Israel's liberal democracy. I am a regular participant and I'm very proud of it. Last night, as I was leaving the protests and I was crossing Ibn Gvirol Street, I switched on BBC Persian and I started watching the news. Thankfully, I was looking at the traffic light, because at some stage they started showing a parent, an Iranian parent, going around a multitude of bodies calling for the name of his son. It was so overwhelming that I had to sit down somewhere, because I just couldn't. I just could not continue. This is like a sledgehammer for Iranians abroad and at home. The people of Iran have just gone through their own Babi Yar massacre. The Nazis killed 30,000 of our people in the space of 2 days. The Iranian regime, if we take the 30,000 number, has done that since the 28th of December, and now we're 25th of January. Not even a month. I cannot begin to tell you how psychologically jarring the events in Iran have been for Iranian diaspora. They have been far worse for the people of Iran. The level of cruelty is unlike anything Iranians have seen before. I feel it's a genocide, and I feel that the people of Iran and Israel are together again in that, because they are both supporting policies that are in line with the United States and the West. They are being ignored by the global left. And there's a huge sense of abandonment by Iranians. Iran has paid probably per capita the highest price in this region for the Palestinian question. Yet when the people of Iran are being massacred in an unprecedented and historic numbers, they don't hear one Palestinian intellectual, one Palestinian leader coming to support them. They don't hear any university organization such as the one we saw in Colombia gathering to condemn the regime and to support them. And there's a huge sense of betrayal felt by the people of Iran, just as it was felt by the people of Israel and also by the people of Gaza, Alison, I have to say. After the war, when Hamas started massacring the people of Gaza, these organizations were nowhere to be seen. I think it has created a sense of betrayal, and it also, people feel that just because they don't pass the entrance test of not being anti-American and anti-Israel, they're not seen as humans by the global left and by the people who claim to support human rights when they're protesting on the streets of London and New York for what they call Palestinian rights.
Where do you see that evidence of a sense of abandonment by Iranians?
There's a George Mason professor who was mocking Laura Loomer and others by saying, oh yeah, they're saying 16 billion Iranians have been killed, jokingly. But he was trying to say that there are people in the US who are exaggerating the number of people who are killed in Iran. And I think soon we will see that also when the internet is connected. And I hear it also among other Iranians.
We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely.
At the same time, Washington is turning up pressure on multiple fronts. A new Pentagon National Defense Strategy calls on U.S. allies to take greater responsibility for their own security. It reasserts American dominance in the Western Hemisphere and warns that Iran, despite recent setbacks, could try to pursue a nuclear weapon again.
Meir, putting on your academic hat as an expert in Iranian politics and on strategy in the region, it appears with the amount of U.S. armament getting positioned in the Gulf and the Mediterranean right now that we are either looking at a U.S. attack that is already planned and decided on, and it's only a matter of when, or some massive maneuver of brinksmanship with the U.S. hoping for a huge concession by the regime regarding nuclear weapons, other arms that it's going to demand in exchange from refraining from attacking. Do you think you have a clear sense of which one it is? And if it's the latter, the brinksmanship, do you believe that there is a chance that it will work, that it will send the regime on its knees to the negotiating table in order to avoid an attack?
Alison, in my business and as in yours, sources are vital. We rise and fall by the quality of the information that we have, because that forms our judgment and analysis. And that is our job. I don't have any evidence from the Iranian regime coming out, especially after the internet that has been cut, to give you an informed answer of where the regime is going. I can tell you from historic precedent, that the regime is finding itself at a historic juncture. If Ayatollah Khamenei feels that the Americans could kill him and his family, then we could see concessions. If he sees that the people around him are in immediate danger, then we could see concessions. But otherwise, I think he's willing to see 300,000, 400,000 Iranians dead. Judge a man by his friends, Alison. Judge Ayatollah Khamenei by who his student was. His student was Bashar al-Assad. He's the one who sent IRGC advisors to tell Bashar al-Assad what to do. He will not hesitate to do to the people of Iran what Bashar al-Assad did to the people of Syria, just to survive.
We know the beginning of any confrontation will come from the U.S., not from Israel, in contrast to what happened in June, where Israel began and the U.S. followed. But you have written that if the Iranian regime attacks Israel in retaliation for a U.S. attack, it would provide Israel with an important opportunity, because Israel has many targets that they feel are vital to their own security interests. What do you think Israel would attack itself? And do you think it should join in and participate in a U.S. initiative?
If they attack us, absolutely. We have unfinished business, Alison. We destroyed part of the missile production facilities, basically the mixers for the fuel, but there are other types of fuel production and also engine production facilities, which according to open source satellite investigation in the US, they have been left in, we did not destroy, perhaps we did not have time to destroy. We focused on the mixers, and these are very dangerous, and they could soon turn Iran into a huge missile threat. Whereas before, the Iranian regime was a huge nuclear threat. Now that's been neutralized for now. They could turn into a huge missile threat, in that they could produce vast numbers of missiles, which they can fire at Israel. And those could saturate our anti-missile system, meaning that more missiles from Iran will get through compared to the last time. And let's not forget the damage that was caused the last time. If we leave the Iranian missile production program intact, the damage could be far worse. Therefore, we have unfinished business, And if the Iranian regime makes a mistake of attacking us, then we have very genuine targets in Iran to attack, especially Iran's missile program. But I also hope Israel targets regime officials who are taking part in the oppression and suppression of the people of Iran in such a violent manner. I think that will hold Israel in very good stead in future history books of Iran.
Meir, there has been conventional wisdom that the best thing that Israel can do in this right now, the people, its leaders, is to keep its head down and be quiet. Netanyahu even is speaking very little about it. He's even muzzling his most outspoken ministers on the subject of Iran. There's this feeling that it would add credibility to the regime's claims that this whole uprising is being produced by Israel and by the United States. But I've seen you write and tweet that you think Israel can support the Iranian people. So what exactly do you think should be done?
First and foremost, we should be second in line after Supreme Commander President Donald Trump. I think that is very important, which is why I qualified the previous answer by saying if we are attacked, unless we are attacked. If we're not attacked, then that's a different question. We have to work with President Trump to see what he does. But once he starts such a war, and then if we are attacked, then I think we should be publicizing the name of the commanders, Iranian name and addresses and pictures of all Iranian commanders who are taking part in the killing of innocent Iranians. We should, of course, be attacking any facilities that they're using to kill the people of Iran in such a manner, because it's not just because I'm an Iranian Israeli, and of course I want to see great relations between the people of Iran, and it pains me to see what is happening to Iran where I was born. I'm also cognizant of the fact that these very people who are doing this massacres to the people of Iran today, a year and a half ago, were in Syria preparing forces to attack Israel. These are the same IRGC people, many of them, not all of them, many of them. So I think by eliminating these people, we would also be fighting a force that has undermined Israeli security for many years. I think it is very important. In terms of saying things in support of Iranian protesters right now, yes, I think it's very responsible for not saying anything. But to be honest with you, Alison, I'm somebody who supported President Obama not supporting the Iranian 2009 uprising because I didn't want the regime to use that as an excuse to oppress and suppress the people of Iran. You know what? President Obama didn't support those protesters, yet the regime still went ahead and arrested huge number of Iranians and tortured them. So I'm also cognizant of the fact that if we don't say anything and we don't support it, that will not stop the regime from inventing excuses to kill Iranians.
The assessments I've read say that the chances of the regime actually falling even after an attack is slim, that a regime willing to kill hundreds of thousands of its own citizens is nearly impossible to bring down. You mentioned Assad many times. Look how many years Assad held on to Syria despite fighting the civil war on and on. Do you agree that the chances are very small that there will actually be a collapse of the regime in Iran?
I think so. Yes, as I said from the beginning, this regime has the monopoly of power and it is willing to kill. Well, how was Bashar al-Assad overthrown at the end? He was overthrown by land when Turkey sent Mr. al-Jolani to overthrow him. He wasn't overthrown from the air. But I think, nevertheless, I don't dismiss the air attacks because at the very least, if there'd been a huge aerial attack by the West at the beginning of Assad's massacres, perhaps that would have deterred him from future massacres. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it could have played an important factor in his future calculations. Also, if a aerial attack kills Khamenei, it could possibly have the same effect that it had on we saw after killing of Qasem Soleimani and Hassan Nasrallah. And by that I mean their successes were not as important and as powerful as the people they replaced. And both organizations came out weaker after their heads were assassinated. And I think that could also happen if Khamenei is killed.
If this slim chance played out and the regime collapsed or fell or, weakened to the point it could be overcome, do you see any kind of organized opposition that could take control?
Well, there is Prince Reza Pahlavi, who is, by the chance that we are from Iran, is the most popular leader of the opposition. And by no means I'm saying he's perfect, and by no means I'm saying he's beyond reproach. No, that's the same mistake we made with his father, and that's one of the reasons he fell, and that's why 4 million Iranians became homeless like me. No, he has to be criticized, but he's not, but he's the leader. He is the leader of the opposition. So there is an opposition. However, Alison, if he thinks or anybody thinks, and I'm not saying he thinks that, but I think if anybody thinks that as soon as the regime falls, we're going to staff all government ministries and government bodies that are vital to the running of day-to-day lives in Iran with Iranian expats from LA or from Toronto or from London, they're mistaken. The new post-revolution government will have to work with remnants of the regime in key parts of key ministries in order to keep the country running. So they will have to reach some kind of an understanding with at least those who have not taken part in crimes against the people of Iran, that they will be a part of running at least the bureaucracy of future Iran until such times that there is elections and then the whole bureaucracy system is revamped. Until then, it will be important to work with at least remnants of the regime who will be willing to work with a new administration in Iran after the overthrow of the current regime.
We know where the United States and Israel stand, and we've heard your disappointment in where some of the organizations that support human rights are behaving in this matter. The world beyond the U.S., the European, the world community, are you satisfied when you look around and you see how they're responding to this crisis in Iran?
Well, the European Union just passed the resolution condemning what is happening in Iran. And they also are calling for the IRGC to be included in the terrorist list. I think that is great news. But the part of the resolution that called for inviting Prince Reza Pahlavi to speak at the European Parliament did not win majority, and I'm very disappointed by that. And I think European countries should do more to expel the children of regime officials. I mean, my God, I lived in London for 17 years, Alison. You have no idea how many families and relatives of the regime live in London. That's just one city. Toronto, Stockholm. As soon as these people are expelled and they return home, then I think the regime officials will pay a heavier direct price. And I think that will be a welcome message. But at the end of the day, it really depends on the people of Iran to do this. I shudder to think what they will confront when they go out. It's not just to the streets, but they're targeting them with snipers, Alison. They're targeting them with snipers. They're using bullets from Kalashnikov to attack them, and others they're attacking them with air guns, and they're going for groin, for the reproductive parts of the human being, or their eyes. There are, I think, after this revolution, we will have tens of thousands of young Iranians who are blinded by this regime. This is the saddest part. I think the way Iranians think today are probably the same feeling that the French had when they were living under Nazi occupation. They are living under a regime that is willing to kill them, and it is not an Iranian regime. How can Iranian rulers do this to the people of Iran? If they had a shred of pride of being Iranian or a sense of belonging to that land, they would not do to the people of Iran what they are doing, which is why many Iranians believe that this current regime in Iran speaks Farsi, holds an Iranian passport, but it is not Iranian. It is a foreign occupation regime that is violently controlling their country, killing its people, and looting its economic resources, just as the Nazis were doing to the people whom they occupied in Europe after defeating their armies.
Meir, final question. As you said, you don't know what's going to happen. What do you see as the worst possible outcome to all of this? And to end on a more hopeful note, the best possible outcome?
I think 200, 300,000 Iranians dead. I really am worried that they're going to do this because of their experience from Bashar al-Assad, because some of these people are religious fanatics and others are just opportunists, murderous opportunists who have only gained their economic conglomerates and their cars and their houses by belonging to this regime. And they are willing to fight and kill their own citizens in great numbers to hold on to their assets, because they know that if the regime falls, they're not going to have their homes, businesses, and their cars and everything that they have. Iran could turn into a mass graveyard, just as Syria was by Bashar al-Assad, because these are the people who taught Bashar al-Assad.
And the best possible outcome?
That the people in Iran who are doing these things become fearful of losing their homes, their families, and their lives in a future Iran, and they stop doing what they're doing, and so suddenly we see a major part of the IRGC breaking off and siding with the people of Iran against the massacres, and agreeing to the opposition coming over, taking over Iran, and after a period holding democratic elections. And I think this is something that is very important for the future of Iran.
Dr. Meir Javedanfar, Reichman University, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we will all hope for the best.
Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of the Haaretz Podcast. Thanks to my guest, Dr. Meir Javedanfar, and to my producer and editor, Adi Shacham. If you want to keep listening to the podcast, make sure you don't miss an episode. Please subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you're so inclined, leave us a 5-star rating, and that way more people can find us. And to keep up with all of the latest news on Israel, the Middle East, and the Jewish world, don't forget to subscribe to and follow Haaretz.com. I'm Alison Kaplan-Summer, and until next time, shalom from Tel Aviv.